Lisa's very famous, and like really, I mean, she's a rock star.
The Brandeis Center was founded about a decade ago by a civil rights attorney named Ken Marcus. And Ken Marcus, as I'm going to explain to you in a minute, was really instrumental in developing the understanding and the application of Title VI, which is what all of us here use to try and help the students. But what I wanted to walk you through what the Brandeis Center and how we use Title VI, because it's so important for you to understand how this works. The problem that we found on campuses overwhelmingly is that university administrators do not understand what's happening on campus. They misdiagnose the problem. They think that what they're witnessing is a political debate. They think that what's taking place is, on the one hand, they have pro-Palestinian students, on the other hand, they have pro-Israeli students. It's a debate taking place. And so when they define it as a debate, that for them means it's all about speech. And if you're talking about the law, and the law happens to be one of the most powerful, motivating tools we have, universities don't want to be on the wrong side of the law. Because being on the wrong side of the law means not only bad publicity, it means they can lose their funding and more. But for them to understand that there is potential legal liability, and I don't mean that we have to sue, they just need to understand that what's happening in front of them is actually harassment and discrimination. Because they have a legal obligation to protect the students on their campus from harassment and discrimination. On the one hand, if you think about it, so much of what all of us have been doing for years is trying to educate the students on campus, because you have students who came to campus who didn't know the history of Israel, the history of the peace negotiations, none of this. And so when we would find, and you'd hear all the disinformation being put out there by the Palestinian community or the anti-Israel community, then our community said, here, let us tell you the Israeli narrative, and go out there and share the Israeli narrative. But by doing that reinforced for the administrators this misunderstanding that they had and made it look like this was a political debate. What we need is for the students to be able to articulate how and why what they are experiencing is harassment and discrimination. And for you to be able to help those students understand that, you need to understand what Title VI is. Title VI says, no person in the United States shall, on the ground of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. In other words, if you're an entity that's getting federal funds, you've got to make sure that all your students, because almost every institute of higher education gets some kind of federal funds, even private universities, you have to make sure that all your students have equal access to all the educational opportunities you provide. If there are students who are being marginalized or excluded or told they're not welcome, so let's say, for example, we have those students who are being told now, you're a Zionist, you can't join my club for LGBT rights, or for women's rights, or for immigration rights, or climate change. You want to demonstrate with us on any of those issues, the first thing you have to do is get rid of that Zionism. If they're being told that, then what we need to do is we need to help our students explain and articulate how that is harassing them and discriminating against them on the basis of a key component of their Jewish identity. But take a look at that Civil Rights Act. It doesn't say religion. Religion's not included as a protected category. So if religion's not included as a protected category, how are we going to protect our Jewish students? Because isn't what they're experiencing religious discrimination? That's where you get to what Ken Marcus did. Back in 2004, after 9/11, there were members of faith-based groups, Muslims and actually Sikhs, who were being mistaken for Muslims, who were suffering terrible harassment in educational institutions. And they filed complaints under Title VI with the Department of Education. And the Department of Education initially said, what do you want from us? This is a religious complaint. You're religious members of faith-based groups. Ken Marcus was doing his first stint as the head of the Office for Civil Rights, as the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights in the Department of Education. He said, well, wait a minute, that can't be. He says, groups that face discrimination on the basis of shared ethnic characteristics may not be denied the protection of our civil rights laws on the ground that they also share a common faith. That was Ken Marcus's letter. He created the understanding, or set forth, I should say, the understanding of Title VI, that members of faith-based groups are covered as long as the discrimination they are experiencing is on the basis of one of these other categories: color, race, national, ethnic origin. That was in 2004 in the Bush administration. In 2010, in the Obama administration, the Department of Justice and the Department of Education adopted that same understanding. They said in the Department of Justice letter, and the quote, although Title VI does not prohibit discrimination on the basis of religion, discrimination against Jews, Muslims, Sikhs, and members of other religious groups violates Title VI when that discrimination is based on the group's actual or perceived shared ancestry or ethnic characteristics rather than its members' religious practice. So by 2010, you already had now both Republican and Democratic administrations recognizing that the Title VI protects members of faith-based groups when they are discriminated against on the basis of their shared ancestry and ethnicity. And there was a detailed letter from the Department of Education. What are universities supposed to do when they find that kind of discrimination? Well, one of the things that they have to do is they have to take prompt and effective steps, not drag it out and delay like we see so many universities do today. But they have to turn around and they have to take prompt and effective steps reasonably calculated to end the harassment, eliminate any hostile environment and its effects, and prevent the harassment from reoccurring. That's what we're asking our universities to do today. But the universities can't even begin to take those steps to end the harassment if they don't see the harassment. And so what is a Jew's Zionism? What Zionism is to Jews? Zionism is for many Jews, not for all Jews, but for most Jews, an integral component of their Jewish ethnic and ancestral heritage. It is our history, our whole history, where we were born and where we come from as the Jewish people, right? The birth of our identity as part and parcel of the Jewish people is inextricably intertwined with the land of Israel. And so if I believe that Jews have a right to self-determination in our ancestral homeland, that is an expression of my pride in my shared ancestry and ethnicity as a Jew. And to demand that I give that up in order to participate fully on university campuses today is unlawful harassment and discrimination. So that's what we do, that's what you need to understand, and that's why we need you to help the students articulate this when it's happening to them. Woo!